Welcome to our Hebrew class. My name is Tom Howling, and today we will be working our way through Yehuchanan, or in modern Hebrew, Yochanan, and in English, John chapter 6, and we will cover verses 9 to 12. So let us begin. And as you can see, I've given you a valve chart to help you with the Nakud, the valve markings, and also these great resources. Beit HaMashiach, it's a very useful resource to help you when you're practicing your Hebrew. And then we have also the Do It in Hebrew dictionary, which is invariably important when we want to determine the true meaning of the root word. So let us begin. And we begin with a tet, which is the ninth letter of the alphabet. And we know that the numbering system follows the letters rather than numbers. And so we're in verse 9, and we go through the letters. Hey, Nun, Hey, Aleph, Tav, Nun, Vav, Nun, Ayin, Resh, Aleph, Shin, Resh, Lamed, Vav, Chet, Mem, Shin. And we read it. Hine, meaning behold. Itanu, with us, with the it being with. Na'ar, a youth. A share, who, and remember that a share can be who, that, which, what, but in context it's who, because it's talking about a youth. Lo, to him, or for him, and I've also translated who has for himself. Chamesh, meaning 5. So the translation, behold, a young man is with us who has 5. And I've given you na'ar as a masculine noun. It means youth, youngster, adolescent, or minor. So now it is time for us to read that without any aid. Hine, itanu, na'ar, asher, lo, chamesh. And of course the translation, behold with us a youth, who for him 5, or who has for himself 5. Of course, remembering that we are now talking, we're in the middle of, based on last week's reading, we're in the middle of the feeding of the 5,000. So that's what we're reading today. So let us continue. And we're in part B now. We have a kaf and a kaf, resh vav tav, lamed chet mem sofit, sin ayin resh yod mem sofit, vav shin nun yod dalet gimel yod mem sofit, aleph, and a kaf sofit, meaning a kaf at the end of a word. Right, just remembering that where we have like a vav with a cholam above it, then we actually only say the actual cholam, the vowel. So let us read. Ki kerot lechem. And it means loaves of bread of. Of course, the ot at the end is plural. So first, not to be confused, we have karat, which is a verb to cut, to amputate, to fell, not to be confused with that. It's not from karat. It actually is kikar, and that's a noun. It's a colloquial word meaning a loaf of bread. And I do believe it means something like square as well. So, but it's usually thought of as a loaf of bread, which may be square anyway. And then we have se'orim, barley, and you can see that's a plural form with the im at the end because the loaves is plural. So this must be plural. So it is loaves of bread of barley. Ushne, and 2, and it's a construct form. So we have two of. Dagim, meaning fish. And as we can see, that's a plural form, but we know fish can also be singular or plural. Right, and then I've given you se'ora down here, which was a feminine noun for barley. That's like a singular form. Then we have dag, which is a col verb to fish, and dagar is a feminine noun which means fish, and that's a collectively term. And then we have 1 Samuel 5:2, where we see the word dagon, which was the fish L. All right, and then we have ak, which can mean but. If we look down here, ak as a conjunction can mean but, hardly, scarcely. So therefore, but. So we have the translation, 5 loaves of barley bread and 2 fish, although. So here they're translating ak as although. So let us read that. Ki kerot lechem se'orim ushne dagim ak. Loaves of bread of barley and 2 of fish, but. And so we come to part C of 9, and we have a mem, hey, a lef, lamed, hey. Lamed, ayin, mem, safit, resh, vayet, because there's no dot, kaf, zion, hey. And we read it. Ma ele, what, and I've added are, just to give us the full context of it. What are these? Ele. Le'am, for people, rav, numerous, but of course it could be great, much, honor. Well, look at the word rav as an adjective. It can also mean honorable, like we see written in rabbi, which literally means my great one. And then we have kaze, like this, with the calf being like. So although, what are these for so many people? That's the translation. So now we're going to read that. Ma ele le'am rav kaze. What are these for people numerous like this, or great like this? And so we come to 10, represented with a yod, which is the 10th letter of the alphabet. And that's why it has a value of 10, based on numerology, right? So then we go through the letters. Vav, yod, aleph, mem, resh, yod, hey, vav, shin, ayin, zade, vav, vav, aleph, tav, hey, ayin, mem, savit, lamed, shin, vayet, tav, aleph, resh, zade, hey. And we read it. Va yomer, and he said, remembering that no pronoun we can insert he. And he said, and then who? Yahushua or Yahusha. Savu. Now, though they both have the same dot in them, the first one is more like a dagesh, and that one's given us the vowel marks. So it is zavu, savu. You command, because the pronoun is on the end. You command. Et, grammar marker, ha'am, the people, la shevet, to sit. Now we know that's a construct form with the tav at the end. It's indicating it's a construct form. And then it is artsa. Now the hey at the end is a directional hey, meaning to the earth. Or often they're translated to the ground, right? So Yeshua said, command the people to sit on the ground. And sav is a masculine noun meaning decree, command, or order. So now we can read that. Vayomer, Yahushua, savu, et ha'am la shevet artsa. And he said, Yahusha, you command, grammar marker, the people to sit to the earth. And now we come to part B, and we have a Vav, Yod, Resh, Kuf, Dalet, Shin, Ayin, Lamed, Resh, Vayet, Hey, Yod, Hey, Bayet, Mem, Kuf, Vav, Mem, Safit, Hey, Vav, Aleph. Vav, Yod, Shin, Vayet, Vav. Now let's read it. Virak, and green. So how do we get that? It comes from yerek, which is a masculine noun meaning greenery, vegetable, or herbage. So, and green, deshe, which is the word for grass, la rove, for plentiful. Right? Now we know the rav means much or great or many. So therefore, we can use plentiful as well to fit it in, or abundant. Haya, it was. Ba makom, in the place. Ha hu, that. Va yesh vu, and they sat. Again, the u at the end is they. And yeshev is the root word for to sit. So, therefore, now we can read that. Virak deshe la rov haya bamakom hahu vayeshvu, and green grass for plentiful it was in the place that, and they sat. And now we come to verse 10, part C. We got a lamed, aleph, resh, zadisofit, kaf, chet, mem, shin, taf, aleph, lamed, Fey this time, no dot there, yod, mem, sofit, mem at the end of a word, aleph, yod, shin, bayet, mem, samek, pay because of the dot, resh. And we read, la aretz, to the earth. So they sat to the earth or to the ground. Ka cha meshet, like 5, but it's a construct form with the tav at the end because it's connected with this word. Alafim, meaning thousands. So like 5,000. Ish, which literally means man, but in the context it means men, because we're talking about 5,000. And then we have be, mis, par, in number. So if we look down here, elef is a masculine noun meaning 8,000, whereas generally alpim is a noun meaning 2,000, which looks very similar to up there, but because we're talking about 5, then it's used just in the plural form. And then mispar is a masculine noun meaning number, digit, numeral. And then we have safar, a kol verb to count, to enumerate, and sefer is a masculine noun meaning book, scroll, account books. Now I've added that just to show you that this part of the word, when it's treated here as safar, as a kol verb, it means to count. Whereas up there it's a noun and it means number. And of course, we know that Sefer is also the word meaning for a scroll. Right, so they sat on the ground, about 5,000 men in number. And so now we can read that. La'aretz kachameshet alafim ish bemispar. And the translation, to the earth like 5,000 men in number. And so we come to 11 now. We have a yod, which we know is a value of 10, and aleph, a value of 1, being the first letter of the alphabet. And then we go through the letters. Vav, yod, kuf, chet, yod, hey, vav, shin, ayin, aleph, tav, kaf, kaf, resh, vav, tav, hey, lamed, chet, mem, sofit, vav, yod, vayet, resh, kaf, sofit. And we read it. Vayikach, and he took. So why is it a perfect form? Because we've got a vav and a yod. Yod is imperfect, but with the vav it makes it perfect, a completed action. And he took. Yehoshua, or Yehusha, et ki kerot, meaning the loaves, and I've added of because it could also, it's a construct sort of form, plural construct. Halechem, the bread, literally the loaves of the bread. We just put the loaves of bread. Ve varek, and he blessed, because we know the barek means to bless. So Yeshua then took the loaves, and when he had given thanks, that's how it's translated. And then we read this, lakach, which is the kol verb to take, to acquire. So we can see that the lamed is dropped off in the word up here, and that often happens. Then we've got karat. I already explained that that means to cut off. But kikar is a noun, a colloquial noun meaning a loaf of bread. So let us read that now. Vayikach Yehoshua et ki kerot halechem vevarek. And he took Yehusha, grammar marker, the loaves of bread, and he blessed. And so we come to 11b, and we have a vav, yod, tav, nun sofit, nun at the end of a word. Lamed, tav, lamed, mem, yod, dalet, yod, vav, vav, hey, tav, lamed, mem, yod, dalet, yod, mem sofit, nun, tav, nun, vav, lamed, mem, samek, bayet, yod, mem sofit. So I'm just trying to make you very accustomed to the letters by going through them. So we read, Vayiten, and he gave. Right, again, because of the prefix, it's a perfect form. And it comes from Natan, where the nun is dropped off. And he gave, le talmidav, to, that's the beginning, his disciples, with the vav being his. V'ha talmidim, and the disciples, nat nu, they gave. Again, its root is natan, there. That's the root. They gave. Lam subim, lam subim, to the diners. So how do we get that? We get it from mesubim. Mesubim is a noun meaning diners or participants in a meal. So we read, when he had given thanks, he gave to the disciples, and the disciples gave to them that were seated. And so now we can read that. Vayitain, Latal me Dave. Vahatal me dim. Natnu lam subim. And he gave to his disciples, and the disciples, they gave to the diners. And so we come to 11c, and we have a vav, kaf, hey, gimel, mem sofit, mem, nun sofit, hey, dalet, gimel, yod, mem sofit, kaf, aleph, vav, tav, nun, fe, shin, mem sofit. And we read it. The ka, and like so. So again, the calf is like, and ka can mean so. And like so, gum also, min from, ha da gim, the fish. Ke avat, like desired. So if we look down here, ava is a feminine noun meaning lust, passion, desire, and that's like a flowery form. Like desired, naf sham, their being, remembering that nefesh means soul or being, and the mem sofit at the end meaning their, because mem sofit could be them or their being. So, and I've given you ko here, which is an adjective. It can mean thus, so, in this manner. So we could say, and like in this manner. So them that was seated. That's from the translation. And likewise also of the fish, as much as they wanted. So now we can read that. Ve ka, gam, min, ha da gim, ke a vat, naf sham. And like so also from the fish, like desired, their being. And now we come to 12a, represented with the yod, has a value of 10 and a value of 2. And we go vav, yod, hey, yod, kaf, aleph, shin, resh, sin this time, vayet, ayin, vav, yod, aleph, mem, resh, aleph, lamed, taf, lamed, mem, yod, dalet, yod, vav. Remembering that the white ones, aleph, and the ayin are not pronounced. And then we read, Vehi, and it was, often translated, and it came to pass, Ka'asher, like when. Now remembering that asher can be who, that, which, when. So in context here, like when. Savu, they were satisfied. It comes from sava. If we look down here, sava, it's a cold verb to be full, to be satisfied. They were satisfied, again the pronouns on the end, Vayomer, and he said, L2, tell me Dave, to his disciples. And it came to pass after they were filled, he said to his disciples. So let us now read that. Vehi, ka'asher, savu, vayomer, el talmidav. And it was like when they were satisfied, and he said to his disciples. So now we come to 12b, and we have aleph, samek, fe, vav. Aleph, tav, pei, tav, vav, tav, yod. Hey, lamed, chet, mem, safit. Aleph, shin, resh, nun, vav, tav, resh, vav, lamed, mem, ayin, nun, safit. And we read, isfu, you gather, like a second person, because remember he's talking to his disciples. You gather. Right? And it comes from asaf, which is a cold verb to gather or to collect. And then we have et, grammar marker, petote, petote. The fragments of, it's a construct ending again. And the root of it is petotim, which is a masculine noun, and it means flakes, fragments, pieces, or shards. And then ha-lechem, meaning the bread. So the fragments of the bread. Asher, that, notaru, they remain. So let's have a look at notar. It's a verb to be left, to remain, or as an adjective it means remaining. Right, they remain. Le'ma'an, for the sake. He said to his disciples, gather up the fragments that remain for the reason. Right, now I've also given you a bit extra here. Yater is a masculine noun, which also means remainder, rest, or excess. And then I've given you letma'an, which can mean also in order to, for the sake, or for the benefit. So I've given you a few extras there. And so we read it. Isfu et petote ha-lechem asher notaru le'ma'an. You gather, grammar marker, the fragments of the bread that they remain for the sake. And then we come to 12 part C. We have Aleph, Shin, Resh, Lamed, Aleph, Yod, Aleph, Vayet, Dalet, Mem, Aleph, Vav, Mem, and Hey. And we read, Asher, that, lo, not, yovad, shall be lost. So the root of that word is avad. Kol, verb, to become lost, to lose, to exterminate, to perish. And we have a yod in front of it, which makes it an imperfect form, so it's not shall be lost. Me'uma, which means anything. So the translation, for the sake that nothing shall be lost. And so now we can read that. Asher, lo, yovad, me'uma, that not shall be lost anything. And now it's time for us to turn to our revision of those verses that we just went through. And remembering, we begin with the tet, which has a value of 9. So we're in verse 9. Hine, behold, itanu, with us, na'ar, a youth, asher, that, lo, to him, chamesh, 5. So here we've translated, behold, with us a youth who for him, or who has for himself, 5. Ki kerot, meaning like loaves of lechem, bread. Se'orim, which is barley, ushne, and 2 dagim, fish, ak, but. So loaves of bread of barley, ushne, and 2 dagim, meaning fish, but. Ma, which is what, and I've added are, ele, these, le'am, for people, rav, great or numerous, kaze, like this. What are these for people numerous like this? And now we come to Yod, which we know is a value of 10, the 10th letter of the alphabet. Vayomer, and he said, Yahushua, Savu, you command, et ha'am, the people, la shevet, to sit, artsa, to the earth. And he said, Yahushua, you command, grandmarker, the people, to sit to the earth. The rock and green, deshe, grass, la rove, for plentiful, haya, it was, ba makom, in the place, hahu, that, vayeshvu, and they sat. And green grass for plentiful it was in the place that, and they sat. La aretz, to the earth, to the ground. Ka chameshet, like 5, and it's a construct form, elafim, thousands, ish, man, be mispar, in number, to the earth, like 5,000 men in number. And rather than using 5,000, which is like singular, which we would say in English, I'm using thousands because it's a plural form there, right? But normally translated as thousand. And then we come to Yod 10, Aleph 1. So we're in 11. Vayikach, and he took Yahushua et ki kerot, loaves of ha lechem, the bread, ve varek, and he blessed. And he took Yahushua, grammar, the loaves of bread, and he blessed. Vayiten, and he gave, le talmidav, to his disciples, the ha talmidim, and the disciples, nat nu, they gave, lam subim, to the diners, to the ones participating in the meal. And he gave to his disciples, and the disciples, they gave to the diners. Ve ka, and like so, or like in this manner, gum also, min, from hadagim, the fish, ke avat, like desired, nafsham, their soul or their being. And like so also from the fish, like desired their being. And now we come to 12, which is represented with Yod 10 and Avet 2. Vehi, and it was, ka'asher, like when, savu, they were satisfied. Vayomer, and he said, El2, talmidav, his disciples. And it was like when they were satisfied, and he said to his disciples, Isfu, you gather, et petote, meaning the fragments of halechem, the bread, asher, that no taru, they remain, let ma'an, so that. So, and we translate it, you gather, grammar marker, the fragrance of the bread, that they remain, for the sake, sheer, that lo not yovad shall be lost or shall perish, me'u ma, anything, that not shall be lost, anything. And then finally, we come to the vowel marks. And as we can see, we've got a kamatz, remembering that the kamatz is a longer A sound, and then we have patak, which is a shorter. Then we have zere, a longer E sound, and sekgol, shorter E. Shavar breaks up the word into its syllables. Cholam is more the O sound, and then we have shutruk, short U, and then kubutz, a longer U. And then we have a combination of shavar and segol, called kataf segol. Then we have chirik, that's the I sound, and then a shavar with a patak. It's called a kataf patak. And this one's called a kataf kamatz, after the shavar. And finally, of course, we come to the resources again and the letters. And just randomly, we can look at some. Kuf is 100, Fe is 80, Tet is 9, Lamed is 30, He is 5, Chet is 8, Samek is 60, Tav is 400, and Zadeh is 90. Just trying to get you used to the letters and their values. And I've repeated the resources again. And I do pray that these are helpful tools that you can use to improve your Hebrew. It is a true joy to go through and learn the Lashon HaKodesh, the Holy Tongue. We do believe it is special. And so we just want to thank you for joining us. If you've come this far, we do hope you return to go through the lessons each week. And we want to wish you a Shavua Tov, a good week.